SoftCo Leaders Series, where we've invited people from industry and sport to give us their insights on leading business transformation or leading teams. I'm Susan Spence, co-founder of SoftCo. We build financial automation software that is used by companies worldwide, including Primark, Finnish Government, Sunny Delight, and Grafton Group. Today's topic is AP automation, backbone, not back office. And I'm delighted to talk to Jamie Radford of the AP Association, who's here to explain why AP automation is the backbone of finance and how to get it right. Jamie, first of all, you're incredibly talented. You're a judo expert, which I would really like to chat to you about that. It probably helps in the whole AP world. But really, first off, what motivated you to found the AP Association 8 years ago?
Lovely. Thank you for today, Susan. Yeah, look, 8 years ago or so, I worked in procurement, actually. So I was in procurement. I was a consultant going around the UK, helping finance and procurement functions. And I noticed there was a gap. There was nobody looking after the interests of the wonderful world of accounts payable and procure to pay. Thought it was strange. I knew there were some organizations in the US, but nothing in the UK, and decided to create a group on LinkedIn, which is still going today, which is called the AP Forum. 6-7 years later, that group grew to 26,500 members, and it now today stands at 50,000 members plus, predominantly all UK and Europe. But again, just an absolutely lovely community. And that's what we are, we're a community.
And tell me, who are your members? Are they people from the world of AP? Are they AP managers? Are they CFOs? Are they IT? I mean, who typically makes up the members?
Yeah, look, I'd say middle managers of AP functions or AP teams make up predominantly the biggest part of our membership. But we do have CFOs, we have FCs, and we have IT functions that come in when they're running projects because they need to know a little bit more about what makes up the wonderful community of AP. But predominantly across our group, I would suggest that it's mainly middle managers, AP leaders, purchase ledger managers, you know, in the old days, calling us purchase ledgers, and way back when it used to be called bought ledger. That's how old I am, Susan.
Jamie, I can't imagine that. Do you also have judo players part of it, or is this just you that do you have this?
Look, you can't see me on camera, but I'm only very short, actually. I'm not as tall as the camera makes out. Way back when, the reason for the judo analogy is I've done judo from the age of 5. By the age of 6, I was the national champion. I was representing GB. So it's been in my family, in my career, all that through that. It gives me confidence, and it helps in our community. It helps us, you know, predominantly our community are female, 80% of our community are female, and it's all about expressing our interests, giving confidence, giving a voice to accounts payable. So the judo analogy actually plays throughout all of what we do in the AP world.
Fantastic. I'd like to hear more about that. But we are talking about AP being the backbone of finance. Why do you believe that's the case?
Well, look, I mean, if nothing else, you know, the last 2 years or so has taught us that a very back office function, process driven, people driven, automation and system driven can pivot and work from different environments. Now, because of that, I think we've been thrown into the limelight and we're shining for the first time. And we are absolutely expressing the great work that we do, the strategic value that we can bring. And I think that's the important part, you know, that historically we've been known as a back office function. You go there usually when there's a problem. Actually, we've been pushed into the foresight now, to the forefront, and we're now the backbone. People really understand what we do. CFOs are getting the true value, and what we're hearing from the community at large is for the first time they feel that they're really getting their voice.
And tell me, what are the priorities that drive automating AP? Like in the past, you have this idea of paper coming into all different locations, trying to centralize it, just trying to get visibility on who you're due to pay and what you're due to pay, and always has a big impact on your working capital. So in your community, what are the priorities that are important?
Yeah, look, it's visibility and control. You know, I think they're the two parts that I would definitely say that, you know, unfortunately we live in an environment currently where there's fraudsters. You know, there's people really trying to press the envelope, if you like, or push the envelope. But actually visibility and control, and actually giving our community the feeling of being more analytical. So actually, rather than processors, they can become more analytical in their approach. And the visibility and control for us is all about that data. It's grabbing data, it's sharing it. And if I used, my procurement background and those analogies between the two, having functions that are not siloed and work collaboratively is absolutely the success to a very strong and powerful accounts payable function.
Actually, interesting you bring out the procurement side of it, and you were responsible for the spend of about 250 million. Were you one of those scary procurement people that nobody wanted to chat to? But my real question to you is actually, we often hear if you get AP right, it facilitates procurement and spend. Other people saying, no, you got to control the spend before you start looking at AP. What's your view on that?
Look, it's I'm not going to sit on the fence, but it's a mixture of both. Ultimately, I'm one of those all alternative people that I've sat in procurement, I've sat in finance, and I've bridged between the two. And the reality is, you've got to work outside of silos. You've got to work collaboratively. Procurement directors, CPOs, and the finance directors, and that those organizations have got to speak and align their strategies. But at the middle management point of view, the AP managers, the procurement leaders, these guys have got to work together more so than ever now, because the quality of the data drives good best practice in terms of what they're both trying to achieve. And what they're both trying to achieve, by the way, is to pay suppliers on time. That's it. Effectively get a good supplier in, manage the relationship, manage the quality of the goods or the service, and get the supplier paid on time. Yes, out there you'll hear lots of we don't pay suppliers for working capital, etc. The reality is, all people in our membership are trying to pay suppliers on time. It's the process, the people, the training, and the inefficiencies that sometimes come into lieu.
Mentioning inefficiencies, what about return on investment? I mean, that's something where I've even heard, particularly from my US colleagues, that AP has become a profit center. In the past, you've looked at AP and said, okay, how do we cut costs of the manual process? So again, what are your members saying to you in terms of return on investment when you automate AP?
Yeah, and again, that whole profit center, I think, I've heard that used many times by organizations trying to sell something, but the reality is it's becoming really important. Having, that value back in terms of what you're doing and what you're achieving, and automation drives that. What automation does to our communities, it frees up time, it automates solutions and parts of processes that actually are quite mundane, it's quite repetitive in the approach. And actually what our members are telling us more so than ever is that they're embracing this. There was years and years ago, there was lots of people that were skeptical about the change that were coming down, the robots are going to take our jobs and all this good stuff. The reality is 30 plus years in finance, I'm not saying robots or automation take their jobs. All I've done is see effectively add value to it and enhance the roles that AP people can do.
You might even put in a judo team instead of the robots.
You know what? I think we could learn a thing from, especially with the state of the state of accounts payable at the moment. Very much reminds me of a sporting analogy. AP managers are great leaders. They are the people. People is their core part and their core division. And what they're learning from automation, systems, and all this good stuff is actually, if you train the people and you give them enough confidence to go and progress, actually what they do is they work with organizations such as yourself in terms of roadmaps, what they want to do and evolve. That's what it comes from. It comes from the people first.
And do you think remote working has helped or been a hindrance? Again, people say very hard to get people in this environment, and particularly in the area of finance. So how has that impacted?
Yeah, a mix of both. It's still very difficult to get very good quality finance people. So whether it's accounts payable or just across the finance community, very difficult. And it's also the whole thing about remote working has led you can work anywhere, but it's this hybrid approach where you want a couple of days in the office and a couple of days from home effectively. That's the challenge at the moment. And it's that even balance. So again, employers are trying to get back to where they once were. Employees are trying to get the value and have that, if you like, that work-life balance. So in one respect, yes, it's helped somewhat because you can work anywhere in sort of UK, Europe, and in the world actually, to go and work in the world of finance and accounts payable. On the negative side, and I hate to be on the negative side, it is that retention of people, it's the attraction of new quality and people into your teams. But again, that's where we come in. That's where we can support organizations with a bit of training, a bit of support, a bit of guidance.
And getting a project right is really important. So do you provide education workshops? Do you help people build a return on investment? Where are the boundaries of your organization in terms of helping people automate their environment?
Yes, so we're effectively a membership community. That's where we're for, the foresight where we are. But we also offer certification courses and qualifications. And the courses element are really important. And what we do there is effectively we either go face-to-face or virtual as we are today. Mm-hmm. And we teach in all different aspects. And one of the sort of the evolving areas is automation. How do you build a business case? How do you get your team ready for automation? What's the communication plan? You know, what's the business resilience plan? So all these things come into account. And we as an association, we train in all these areas. We guide, we educate. So in our website, and what we promote ultimately is whatever you struggle with, we will absolutely go and train, or we'll go out to experts such as yourselves, and we'll get the guidance of what we need to educate our teams and our community on.
And what are the common pitfalls your members say to you about implementing AP?
And look, you know, I think the one thing I would say is it's the lack of communication. It's scary. Change is scary. Everybody knows that. But it's the lack of education. It's the lack of communication. And, you know, when you're bringing an automation product into your business, you've got to do it for the right reason and do it in this way: people, process, technology. If you remember, the people drive it, then you've got the process. So don't do one before the other. And then the technology. If you do it in that order, engage your people, make sure you've got a documented process that you're happy with, and then ultimately work towards some form of technology or automation, you will then have a more successful automation. And that's what we hear all the time. They do it in the wrong order. They don't tell people. That's the challenge we have in our community.
Well, actually, that's brilliant if you advise people that way, because there's nothing worse than going and meeting somebody and you say, what are your issues? I'm not really sure. And how does it work? I'm not really sure. So in fact, setting people up like that, you are setting them up to have a successful project. Do you actually, for example, do you encourage your members to talk to other people that have had a successful project, or conversely, organizations where it hasn't worked for some reason because of those kind of, you know, those areas like communication? It sounds very obvious, but not everybody gets it right.
Yeah, look, very much so, Susan. I mean, you know, we're a community at heart, you know, so although we're a membership community, we're a community. And what we do all the time is we say, look, go talk to all the other members, go talk to the community. It doesn't matter what industry you are, what systems you have, and what you're trying to achieve. The best people to go and talk to are the people who are either going through it, thinking of going through it, or have just successfully completed it. Because what you'll learn is you won't just learn the stuff that people want you to know about the successes. You learn about the things about the preparation, the things that may not have worked as well, what you can do differently maybe, and that's what you get. And the reality is, we as an association, our job is to be that independent organization to promote not only organizations such as yourself, but to get our community talking to one another, because ultimately everybody wins then.
Yeah, and actually, that's a really good point. And earlier on, you mentioned fraud. We're seeing, again, from our US colleagues, a massive focus on compliance and, again, fraud prevention. Is that one issue? And if you were looking at all the issues across the, let's say, P2P process, what would you say is front and center at the moment? Is it automation? Is it fraud? Is it getting procurement right? Where do you kind of rank those?
Yeah, look, I think, you know, front and center at the moment, it's fraud prevention. You know, that's the way I'd look at it. Because, you know, whilst we've all been working in different environments, yes, we've relied heavily on people working in different environments and systems to do what we ask them to do effectively. If you've got lack of processes, lack of training, lack of documented processes, the challenge there somewhat is that, you know, fraudsters can see between these gaps, and they do. They prod all the time. So front and center for us absolutely is that there has been a rise globally on attempted fraud. So we would absolutely look at fraud prevention as one of the main points. But actually, it interlocks into that jigsaw puzzle of everything. If you get your processes, you get your people, you get your training, and you get your systems automation correct, actually then the fraudsters it's a bit more difficult to do, as long as you've got that action plan and you're not being siloed, you're working with others. That's what I definitely would suggest people do.
Excellent. In relation to the future of the AP Association, Are you going further afield than the UK and Europe? Are we going for global domination, as they say, or are we going to head out towards the US side? What's the plan?
Well, look, I mean, we are fortunate. We have alliance partners all around the world at the moment. So the plan at the moment is to keep doing what we do. Front and center of what we are an association. So we're a community. We are an association of accounts payable professionals. We're run by a community, by a team of professionals who have been in the industry. That's the important part for us. Everybody that's in my team have been in the accounts payable industry. So whether they're in the UK, they're in Europe or in the States, in North America, South, it doesn't matter where they are, they have to be involved in accounts payable because that's what the industry we represent. So is it going to be global domination? I doubt it. But are we going to work with our alliance partners on supporting best practice globally? Absolutely.
Excellent, really good. Finally now, how about a few tips, top tips, 3 top tips from you for companies embarking on transforming their AP function and bringing their back office function to be the backbone of finance?
I'm going to go back to my original point. It's the PPT. Concentrate on the people first. Make sure that you've got the right people, you've trained them, you've supported them, you've educated them, you've communicated with them. We can support with that, and that's part of what we do as a community. The next part is the process. Make sure that you've documented your current process. We speak to our organizations all the time, and I ask them, have you got a documented AP policy? Well, maybe not. Have you got a documented process of what you go through? We're working on it. Get those things right first, people in the process, make sure you've got a level platform, and then look at what you want to try and achieve. And the next part then is go to the technology organizations and explain what you want to try and achieve. Well, if you do it in that order, you'll have success. You'll work with organizations such as yourselves in terms of the plan, the roadmap, what you're trying to achieve, rather than do it in reverse. Don't think that technology will solve all your problems. Get the other bits done as well.
You're completely right. And thank you very much, Jamie. I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you. Learned a little bit about how, I have to say, this is a first. When I do presentations to my customers, I'll tell them that really they got to get involved in judo. So that's a new one that we can add to our presentation. Jamie, thank you very much. Some excellent points to people listening to this. You're completely right on understanding your process before you automate it. Thank you very much, Jamie Radford.
Lovely. Thank you very much.